Tonight we are going to be learning about shared reading. What is it? Why is it so important? And somebody's playing some beautiful piano music in the background, but probably should mute their. I am Susan Norwell, educational specialist and co-founder of Rett University. And
I am Courtney Barnum, educational specialist who works with Susan and also a sibling of a woman who had Rett syndrome.
And there we go. So let's get started so that nobody has to stay up too late. So shared reading is actually part of a reading process. And I love that Courtney put up here is a suite of practices. So a group of practices used to support teaching reading. And what we try to do when we're teaching reading is start from the premise that everybody's a reader and that we start reading in the womb. Actually, I have my daughter-in-law reading to her baby. She's pregnant. I read to my daughter when I was pregnant. And I think that the research has shown us that familiar books that have been read to kids in utero, that when they then are born, their heart rate changes when they hear that familiar text. So we know that reading is a lifelong process. And the whole idea of gradual release is that we support people highly. I want you to think about learning to ride a two-wheeler. You know, when you were a kid and people kind of like first gave you training wheels and then they ran beside you without them and then they would run and let go and run and let go and run and let go. And then pretty soon they would just let go. And so that's that gradual release model. And we do the same thing with reading. First, we start by reading to them. We're giving them maximum support because we're doing the reading. We're doing the modeling of the language part. We're teaching them how to listen. We're pointing out which way text goes. Just so many things happen as we read to children. Then there's independent reading. Then there's shared reading where we read books that they could look at the text and they could follow along. And we start to teach them some of the things about text that we start at the top and we go to the bottom and look at this word. It's so long. Hello, or what was the word that I just did the other day? Oh, impossible. Oh my gosh, 4 claps. It's got 4 syllables. See, that word is so long because there are so many parts to it instead of dog. That word only has 1 part, 1 clap. Of course, it's going to be a short word. So we start talking about size of words. We start emphasizing beginning sounds, all kinds of things in shared reading. Then kids go on to do guided reading, which means that we're kind of front-loading some of the vocabulary. We're front-loading the modeling of what the strategy is we're going to learn, but they are actually doing the reading of the text side by side with us, but we're really gradually releasing that to them because they can do the reading. And when they get stuck, we're right there to scoop them up and help them. But we get to then independent reading where they can do the reading on their own. So this is a process, and shared reading is part of that process. So why is it so important? It certainly is the higher end of support in learning to read, but it stops being just the focus on meaning and enjoyment, as is read alouds or when we read to them, is it starts to provide those opportunities, they're all listed there, that give us the underpinnings of what reading is all about. So we model vocabulary and we start to increase the language on their device so they have more access to vocabulary, because we're going to talk about fiction and nonfiction. We're going to talk about sequence, what happened first and next and last, all of those things that help people really understand a book and be able to talk about a book later. Sequencing is really important. I'm in a big sequencing, like kind of a sequencing sequence. That's horrible. See, you have to excuse me. I fell on the ice about a month and a half ago, maybe a month ago, and fell right on my head. And so sometimes I still have word finding problems. So if you see me stumbling over my words, it's just because I got dropped on my head. And hopefully within 6 months, my chiropractor says all my marbles will be back. So I'm doing like a focus on sequencing, and we did a focus on a nonfiction book, a couple of nonfiction books that had a sequence that she could put together and then do some retelling. And now we're doing an informational text where you have to make something, and if you don't do it in the right sequence, it's not going to turn out. So that's at the guided reading edge. But when we were doing read alouds and when we were doing shared reading, I was working on those same skills, only giving more support around the reading. When we're doing shared reading, we can provide support for decoding and comprehension by we're doing a little think aloud. I'm kind of wondering what is going to happen here. Here's this fox and he's holding a big rock and he's hungry. I wonder what's going to happen. Or we get to a word and we do the decoding piece out loud so they can hear the strategies we're using. Oh my gosh, look at this word. We know we're reading about carrots. I see carrots in the picture. I see this word with a C at the beginning. I know carrot starts with C. So I'm going to see if it works. Carrots. And that word looks like it has two claps. I think it's going to work. So all of those strategies we kind of do as a think out loud really help them. And we don't do it every page or else they're never going to want to read with us. But we salt and pepper those throughout the story. Concept of print, man, there is a ton of research on the importance of concept of print. And in fact, when we look at reading, conventional reading, it's like a little stool with three legs. One of them is concepts of print, one of them is understanding of language, and the other one is decoding. And so this concept of print lets them understand the difference between short words, long words, that we start on the left, that we come from top to bottom, that when we get to a word we don't know, we can look at the picture and figure it out. There's lots and lots of things about print we just take for granted, but the research shows that if we make it more explicit to our little ones, big ones, medium-sized ones, that they pick up on it really, really quickly. And a little bit of that kind of support goes a very long way. We teach phonics and phonemic awareness. We're taking a look at the words and trying to figure them out within the context of text. Not holding up a letter B and saying, what does it say? Or does B say buh? Because that doesn't do us much good when we're trying to read a book. We need to go in and we need to look at what print looks like and what the sounds are like when they are put together with other letters. That's what's important. We model how we use our expression when we're reading and fluency when we're reading, how we stop at periods when we see an exclamation point, how we make our voice really big. And so all of those parts of reading help. One of the things that I thought was really sad is when they would do these fluency tests and kids had to read the text as fast as they could. Well, what does that teach them? It teaches them read fast, ignore what it means. That if a child really understands the text, they would slow down in appropriate places. They would use expression that takes more time than reading as fast as you can. And what we did was a real disservice to kids. And we found that those fluency things were really hampering their ability to read with meaning. It was just read as fast as you can and be done. It builds interaction. The shared reading can really build interaction because it also builds communication. And what I find is that for my littles, it's a great foundation. But for my older students, my older women and men that I'm working with that haven't had the benefit of learning literacy early on, that I have to be careful about what books I pick because it helps if they're nonfiction and not too childlike. But they benefit from having that same kind of support around how we do this, along with decoding, along with making words, along with writing, along with being read to. All those things work together. We don't do one and say, well, until they do this one, they can't do the other one. They all work together. But it's a very big leap for my adults because they have been read to a lot. And they understand a lot. But they've really never been taught to read. And can you imagine being 24 or 35 or 50 or whatever age it could be that people I'm working with, and now somebody says, hey, I have a great idea. Let's learn to read. So they do need the support of shared reading to help launch them. So it really is this, it is this kind of bucket. Shared reading is that holds all these things: oral language, or using a device language, AAC language, early experiences with print, phonological awareness, phonics, rhyming, vocabulary, what's going to happen next, the idea that we actually stop, think about the book, and ask questions in the middle of it. All the things that we do to teach reading get modeled within shared reading. The difference is there's just a lot more support for the reading to happen. I ascribe to a guided a 4-block model for conventional reading and a building blocks model for emergent reading. And emergent reading, building blocks, shared reading is really a big part of it. It does allow for a lot of flexibility, and I will tell you that for kiddos with and adults with complex needs, it's really essential. I was at an IEP meeting today trying to explain to a team about anxiety in Rett syndrome. And they were like, and they didn't know anything about Rett syndrome. So I said, there's always this debate, is it comorbid with Rett? Is it part of Rett syndrome? Or I've proposed, is it because you're smart and you've been trying to use your body for years and your body isn't responding? And I kind of know what that feels like now. After I fell, I really had a hard time not only finding words, I had a hard time sequencing and remembering things, but I had the worst time knowing where my body was in space. I would be walking. I knew my feet were touching the ground, but I wasn't sure where I was. There was a big disconnect between my head and the rest of my body. And I thought, you know what? I bet this is what they kind of feel like. This disconnect of I'm thinking I'm heading in the right direction, but am I really heading in the right direction? And is my body even responding to what I need? And the day that it went away, it was like, boom. And I went, oh my gosh, I can walk down the steps without looking at each step, making sure I was going in the right place. Now, I get near ice. I still am have post-traumatic stress, and I walk like I'm a penguin. I just waddle. But I think that anxiety also goes into, oh no, hey, I'm 35 and you are teaching me something new.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 24 and nobody has asked me to do anything this hard before. I was joking around with one of my 24-year-olds today and I said, oh my gosh, you just had PT? And she was like, oh, I said, I know those PTs, they work you so hard. Not like me. I just do easy peasy stuff. And she was like, not, like you are lying. So skills are, learning to read is hard. It's hard for everybody. There's a very minute number of people that kind of teach themselves to read like it's falling off a log. But for our kids and our adults, it's even harder because they can't hear they can't make the sounds in their mouth. They can hear other people make them. But I will tell you the difference between a T and a D is where you place your tongue. It's not always what you hear. And so it's what you hear and what you feel, and they're not getting a chance to feel it. So anyways, the skills are all interrelated in this model, not sequential. We don't just read to kids, and then once we've read to them so much they're about ready to kill us, then we do decoding. No, we put it all together. But the main goal of all of this is that we develop people who learn to read and write. That we make it so fun that they want to keep doing it over and over with us. We increase that reciprocity engagement, not just with the reader, but with their device. And the more interaction we have with the device and the more we're able to model and connect it to what they're reading, the more understanding and the more communication.
How about a nonverbal person? Would this work for
I'm sorry. Are you asking, is somebody asking me a question?
Yeah, I'm asking a question. What about a nonverbal person who is diagnosed with the MECP2? He's on the spectrum. One doctor hasn't seen him but says he has male Rett's. My other doctors say he is on the spectrum. Another doctor said it could be mitochondrial along with the Rett's or the MECP2. But what about nonverbal?
I'm talking about all people that are nonverbal. This is all Rett syndrome nonverbal. I'm teaching all.
He understands everything. Very hard for him to speak because he has a swallowing problem. It has 4 intrapluses a day, losing weight. So we have a complex person.
Okay, so can you do me a favor? Let me get through this, and at the end we'll open up for questions, and then I'll make sure that I answer your questions. But to be clear, everything I'm talking about is for nonverbal. I don't teach verbal kids to read. I only teach nonverbal kids and adults to read. That's what we do at Rett University. And the other thing about it is we teach them to read with a voice in their head. They have to learn that there's a voice in their head that can help them and that they can think about it. So we'll talk about that once I'm done. I'm happy to talk some more about that. Before we do shared reading, we model prior knowledge. We take a look at what they might know about the subject of the book. Maybe they don't know anything about the subject in the book, and what we come in, because our people, we can't just take for granted they've had the same experiences that everybody else has. Some kids are really sensitive to sound, so they can't go places that other people go. Some kiddos are, I have somebody that I work with that's in a supported living environment, and she's been in an institution her entire life. Has she had the same experiences that everybody else has had? No, she has not. And so sometimes I have to fill in the experiences with videos or by reading a book about it before they actually read a book about it, because background knowledge is essential to setting the stage for understanding. So we work on purpose of text, whether it's to entertain or advise you or persuade you or argue or describe or teach you how to do something. And we talk about the purpose of the text so they can understand why they're reading what they're reading. We do predictions. We look at the title and illustrations and cover and try to figure out, what do you think is going to happen? And again, it's why it's important that people that are nonverbal have devices and that they've had language modeled to them and have built up some communication skills so that they can talk to us about what they see happening in the book. But if worse comes to worse, we can give them multiple choice. And we're not really getting to what they might be thinking, but we can at least get there. But it is why I'm adamant about everybody learning to write, because if they learn to write, they can say whatever they want. We encourage discussion of text. We give opinions. We communicate around the functions, ask questions, greetings, describe direct actions. All of the functions of language can be practiced on a device while we're doing reading. Dialogic reading is the reading that happens before shared reading. So we talked about kind of that little spiral that went around. This is when we are reading to them, and this is the reading that can really make for language gains and make for interaction and the ability to go back and forth in terms of sustaining attention that isn't related to just watching a video. People who get addicted to videos struggle greatly with this back and forth because they actually have to wait while we take a turn, and the videos don't make them wait. And then when it's their turn, they actually have to do something. Videos don't make them do anything either. So we really work on these skills because before a kiddo can do shared reading, they have to be engaged and stay with us and interact with us around a book that we are reading. I had a little one today who they're really working hard on getting her off of addiction to videos. And she screamed during the grand majority of the book I was reading. Finally got calm towards the end because she realized it really wasn't working. I wasn't going to turn on a movie. And I said, there's no way I could ever get beyond just reading to her until she can calmly and in a regulated body join in this dialogic reading. So don't shortchange this to hurry up and get to them reading a book, because it's not going to work. They kind of like reading. They want to know they have to know what's going on. They have to see it as a really cool thing that they're going to learn to read before you can get them there. And I'm not saying it comes easily. You might have to do some coaxing and cajoling. But if they can't even sit while you read to them and stay regulated, you're going to have a hard time teaching them to read. So this is interactive for all ages, can be done with fiction and nonfiction. And I typically match up a fiction and nonfiction book. So I might read Tacky the Penguin at the same time as I'm doing, which is a book I would read to them, at the same time as they're reading a book called All About Penguins, and they're learning some things about penguins. So now they're saying, wait a minute, this is not real because this Tacky wears a Hawaiian shirt and all of them are talking to each other. So if you've never read Tacky the Penguin, it's Tacky the Penguin, and as you can imagine, he is very tacky, and he lives with goodly, lovely, neatly, angel, and perfect. And I find that my people who know what it's like to be on the outs sometimes really can identify with Tacky, and Tacky is always the hero. So pretty cool. Goodly, lovely, angel, and perfect are pretty useless when it comes to problem solving. So this is shared reading, and what I've done is I've wrapped language around the book picture, and you'll see the text coming up. And she's 4. She's big, I know, she's a big girl, but she's 4, and we're just playing with books here. Because, 4-year-olds typically pick up books, turn the pages, point to pictures. even point to words. They do this pretend reading stuff. Well, how do we do the same thing for our kiddos that can't hold a book, that can't point with their finger, that can't sustain attention for that long? So this is what we do. It would be fun. It would be fun, but do you think it's going good for the cat or bad for the cat? Bad. I think you're right. Something's happening. It's like a bummer. Bummer. Oh, no. He is not doing a good job of climbing. It is a bit scary because he's just hanging there. He's just hanging there. So just so you know, anything that lights up is her using it with her eyes. Anything you hear that isn't lighting up is me modeling. Just so you get the gist of how this is all working. That is it. Oh, no, it's very, very weird. Very, very weird. I totally agree.
I have something else to say.
He's trying to climb, but he cannot climb. He cannot climb that tree. I know. Yeah, what do you think? The cat. What about the cat? What about that cat? You think he's a good guy? You like the cat, but he's a very bad climber. He's bad at climbing. He's bad at climbing. He's not a good climber at all. He's just not. Not a good climber. She just said big. I swear that was the word that just came out of her mouth.
It sounded like it.
It did, didn't it? Like every once in a while, you just hear things. You don't pick it up then, but you pick it up in the video. I know you got the big cat, and I'm remembering he climbs. You can finish the sentence. Yeah, you can finish reading that sentence. Yeah. That's right. And there you go. Climbs. So let me just stop here. So one of the things that I think helps my kids is that when you look in the back, when you look what we just did, those words are popping up one at a time, and they have an inclination to want to look at the next thing that pops up. I started doing this for my kids that had cortical visual impairment because they were having a really difficult time tracking text. With my kids with CP. But my kids with Rett also have a hard time crossing midline. And there's that print processing piece of going left to right we take for granted is just going to happen. That's another motor plan, and they have trouble with motor plan. They have trouble with sequencing actions. They have trouble with coordinating their eyes to make, even though their eyes are better off than their hands because it's a shorter neural pathway from the brain to the eyes, but still they need practice. And so I go from them seeing the words one at a time to them having the words light up as they look across, having them all there. And as they look at them, it forces them to go in order. Oh, the will only trigger this one to be available when you read the. Then it triggers this one to be available for their eyes. It's sitting there the whole time, but it won't light up for them until they've done the. And then they do the big, and that light up turns off, and this one turns on. And so now what you get is you get this, again, gradual release of responsibility to the point that the only word that's got anything on it is the first word has the box, so they know they start at the left, and none of them have boxes. And now they're just got invisible boxes that when they look at, they light up in order. And then pretty soon, none of them have boxes. And then when they're in the guided reading, they move to an iPad where they're just following a cursor. Their eyes aren't doing it. The cursor's moving and they need to follow. All right. It would be fun. So let's see. I need to go to the next one. There. Okay. So now this is an older woman that I'm working with. Again, she has been very fortunate because her mom knew she was smart. Her mom read to her. Her mom brought the world to her. And she was included in school, but we're really not sure what school did with her in terms of teaching her to read. What were the actual skills? I'm sure she took a lot in. She's very smart. I read a book to her the first time I met her, and I asked her what she thought. We read A Bad Case of Stripes, and this kid's got a bad case of stripes, and nothing they do works. And finally I said, it's because she won't eat lima beans because she doesn't think it's cool. And so then she gets a bad case of stripes. So I said, what do you think is going to help her stripes? And she wrote BEEN for bean. So there's somebody who's been in a classroom, picked up on a lot of skills, never had a chance to write and express them, never maybe had a chance to learn to read, but now is doing both of those, is writing and reading and doing making words.
Oh, I love how your eyes are in the green. You're in a good place to use your talker. I'll wait for you.
And you're going to notice how much more time that Haley needs, because there's a lot of anxiety with being around. There we go.
Oh, that's it.
Give her the time.
It is. Those are Bell cookies. You found the most important words, of course. Okay. So, yes, this is my favorite one. I like the blue one. The blue one is massively pretty. I like the colors. Not that snowflakes are blue, but I think that snowflake with that color blue, which happens to be my favorite color blue, is really beautiful. Mm-hmm. Very cute.
So cute.
Mm-hmm.
So cute. So cute.
You got the right idea, and that's where you go back to the main.
I have something else to say.
You got it. I like that one. Now, I have to say that probably the little lines on it, yes, it's good. Mine would not look like that. It would not look that good. Somebody's drawing on it that's got a very artistic ability and very good fine motor. I probably could use some help on that, Hale. You are right. A little bit of help to make it look that beautiful. I know I like cookies too, sweetie. I'm with you. I like cookies. My mom used to make these almond crescent cookies. Oh my God, they're so good.
And this mom made cookies with her daughter.
When she makes them. And she made the best fudge, except I know she left something out of that recipe because every time I make it, it doesn't turn out. I think Hale, she left something out of it. And it's too late to call her on it. So, here, I'll read it to you. Make snowflake, there's that word, snowflake cookies. Cookies. There you go. Now you can decide. That's that important word. It's on every page. But what's specific about this cookie? What is special about this cookie? It's not just a cookie.
And it dawned on me when I was doing this clip that she keeps looking at her mom like, maybe we should make some cookies. And I miss that. I mean, I think all of her looking to her mom is like, all right, don't you think this would be a good idea? We could do this together, which they did, which was really cool.
A very special kind of cookie.
Now look what happens the minute my back is turned. It's usually when they do things.
Mm-hmm.
When the pressure's off, there we go. There's cookies. There's snowflake, and I missed it because I need to talk to Mom about something afterwards.
You like that word. You like that word, cookies. Hey, well, what about the word snowflake?
And now she's probably saying, I've already hit it 3 times, but I'll hit it for you again. So this is the other thing about this woman that I think is so remarkable. Again, unless we try it, we don't ever find out. I mean, I'm like, okay, what about snowflake? And she's going to the snowflake. There's so many times that we've been reading where I'll just say, yeah, I wonder about what's like the main idea here. And she will go right to the word that's the main idea. Haven't even taught it to her yet. And so I think there's just a lot of hidden gems in our adults because they've been around and they've been exposed to a lot of things. They just haven't
I
had a
love how your
chance
eyes
to
are-
do it. And I think that is where we come in terms of a little bit of catch up there. So final thoughts. I love this quote. Any book that helps a child, adult to form a habit of reading, to make reading one of his or her deep and continuing needs, is good for him or her. Any book. So David Copenhagen would say, don't worry about the levels. If they bring home a book that's way above them and they just read the pictures, they read the pictures. And if they bring home a book that's way too easy for them and they read it because they love it, who cares? Would you like to have somebody standing over your shoulder dictating to you what books you're going to read? Like, I can remember when I did a lot of flying, I would pick up a People magazine. Never in my life did I read People, except when I was on a long haul airplane and my brain couldn't hold anything that was anything but trivial. And if somebody said to me, that is really beneath your reading level, as I was standing at the counter buying it, I would have punched them. I'm like, really? Don't tell me that. And so even we as adults that have been reading for years and years read at different levels all the time. Now, I'll pick up a journal and read research, but I better be wide awake and have enough energy to do it. Or I'm reading a new book right now. I'm reading a book on the foundations of reading, and it's actually a textbook. And it's like one of those things where, I read a page and I go back and read it again and I read it again because it's just really dense in terms of the information I'm learning. It's the same thing for all of our readers. But literacy should be a vital part of our communication journey because I will tell you the research is pretty clear. People who read more have a better vocabulary. That's all there is to it. Oops, I have to go back because I hit that by accident. So sorry. Have a better vocabulary. So we need to find these fun, interactive ways to incorporate literacy and increase communication skills and keep it fun and keep it something that they want to do and allow for plenty of wait time. Plenty of wait time. And I find the older they are, the more wait time they need. And we have to do it in such a way that we're not tapping our foot while we're waiting. It's more, hey, I'll wait for you. And sometimes we even ignore and walk away. And then things happen. And we come back and look at the video and go, oh my gosh, look what they did.
I worked with my little one this morning in Egypt, and we've been kind of off for 2 months because they had some things going on. And she needed a lot, when we were working before, she had about a 10-second processing time. She was at about 20 seconds since we've been back in, just trying to get back into the swing of things. And it's almost like I know, and and I looked at her today and I said, I wait for you. We are all good. And she looked at me and she was like, okay, thank you. Yeah, I can do this now. And it's so important to give them that wait time.
Oh, the IEP meeting I was at today, it was kind of like full circle. I was at a school district in my hometown where I was born and raised, actually. And at one point, somebody said, it sounds like what you're trying to say is that we better form a relationship with her first before we do anything. And I'm like, bingo. And I was so excited because without me coming out and saying it directly, they picked up on how important that is. And I think that's important no matter the age. So we're going to open up for questions. We're at the end, but I'm happy to answer questions. If you have a question, you want to turn on your microphone and ask your question. Marvin, I think you had some questions.
Yeah, I do. Number one, do you have a device that you're using? Is that what you're working with the parents, or?
Right. So that would be the child's device, and both Courtney and I have software that we remote into their devices so that we can model on their devices.
Yeah, we have a Lingraphica that we use.
A what?
A Lingraphica, it's called Lingraphica.
Yeah,
It's like an iPad, and they're able to put all kinds of information in there, pictures of things that Adam likes, or different foods, or different things that he can point to what he wants.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah. See, he has speech and language and auditory processing from birth. That's what was diagnosed. And all of a sudden, 5 years ago, we went on a trip. I thought it was panic, and there wasn't. We came back. We went to the University of Pennsylvania, and they thought it was Fragile X, and it wasn't. Then we went to a geneticist and says he has the MECP2. all this time not knowing. He did everything well, dressed himself well before, went to paratransit. He went to different classes within the Philadelphia school system, went to the prom, graduated 2 different high schools, and all of a sudden this happened, and we don't know. And then he had rhabdomyolysis, had a lot of things happening over the last 5 years, AFib, which was corrected. So everything's really a complex situation. We even called the Kennedy Krieger Institute and spoke to a doctor down there and said it could be a combination. It may not be fully Rett's if he's on the spectrum, and it could be something, trying to think of the other part of like a neuro, it's another thing that she wants to test to see if it's part of that as well. Not sure, but it's complex. But the idea is he stopped speaking very little, if any, eating very little.
Very soft.
Yeah, he eats and has 4 intra-pluses a day. For some reason, he doesn't want to chew. I guess maybe he's afraid to chew or to gag. And he was tested. We had speech studies. Oh, I'm talking about swallowing studies done, and everything is normal, but very slow and very slow. He has spasticity all over the body, so maybe a muscle problem.
So what we're really not here to discuss kind of medical situations because we're
Right.
not doctors, but what I guess the overriding would be is that I would give him as much exposure and instruction as possible in using more than just selecting foods that he could make selections on, but that he had an array of language that he could put together.
Right.
So that you've got some core words where he can say, I want to go, or that's funny, or, that bring in all the functions of language that would help him respond, not just to books, but would help him respond to his peers and respond to his family.
Yeah, he responds. We have to ask him. Over the years, he never told us, what did you do in SPIN, Special People in the Northeast, or what did you do? We had to ask him, did you do this or did you do that? He would not tell us directly, what did you do today?
Yeah, I think that my guess is that it's not my guess, it's what I know, is that responding to questions is the hardest thing. But when we work conversationally with children and adults, we get much more information.
Uh-huh.
That would be my emphasis.
I
Does anybody else have any other questions?
I am answering Karen's in the chat about the books, so I will have her email me regarding the books on the device. I don't.
What's the question so we can
She
answer it for
she
everybody?
just said she uses SnapCore. How would I get books like this on her device?
Oh, because if you've got SnapCore on your device, you also have Communicator, and if you have Communicator, then and a license to Reading A to Z will share our books.
Right.
So yeah, so anybody that has a Tobii or a grid pad that they can get Communicator on, we can help with the books. It's just you have to have a license to Reading A to Z because they're copyrighted. But we can also give you a template if you're good at making things and figure it out. And I'm supposed to be doing a course on how to do that. So shame on me that I haven't, but
yes.
yes. I'm done with the construction in my house. I think I actually have all of my sinks with running water, all my toilets flushing, all of my appliances in, all my floors and carpeting, and every switch in the house works. So it's been a very good day. Nobody can find my couch, but hey, it's out there somewhere in couch land. Yay. All right. Any other questions from people? No? Well, it was great to see all of you, even though I don't see any of you. All I see is your names, but that's okay because I sometimes don't like to get in front of a screen when I look like this either, so don't feel bad. So if you need anything, please email. There's our emails. There's my email up there. There's Courtney's email up there. We are glad to help. If you have any topics that you can think of that you would like to have discussed, what's our next topic? Do you remember?
I think we're going to do why we do robust language on a device, because we actually are going to be having a new course coming out on that on Rett University as well. So we're going to be discussing why we have more than 6 buttons on a child's device when they start talking.
There we go. Why do we do that? We do way more than 6. All right. Good night, everybody. Be well.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Oh, that's all right.
Well,
Stay
safe.
Yeah, stay safe because you guys got some big snow. We have snow in Chicago. But north by me, it's not so bad. So everybody stay safe. If you're running the Disney, woo woo. Bravo for all of you that are running the Disney run. Hi there, darling. How are you? I'm happy to see you.
Susan, I get to hang out with her next Friday. She's coming to see me.
Oh, is she? Aren't you lucky? Woo, that's great. You're going to come see Courtney. Good for you. All right. Bye, guys. Talk to you later.
Bye, everyone. Hi.